What's good, YouTube? Back with another reaction to The Masked Man. When everyone loves the villain, we got the dog Askeladd as a thumbnail, who's a really good villain. It says I watched it because I just clicked on it on accident, and I thought it was gonna be an ad. So I tried to pause. I clicked skip on accident, which sold me heavy. But you know what I'm saying? That's neither here nor there. We gonna get straight into it. Make sure y'all boys do 3 good deeds within 24 hours and come back stronger like the dog Hercules. As always, as y'all can already see, I pre-fire me a like. Nothing wrong with pre-firing a like. And if you're subscribed, make sure you hit that bell so you don't miss the movement. Both here on YouTube and on Twitch. We're currently streaming this on Twitch. I'm open OBS, see if anyone's in here. Nobody's in here. So you know what I'm saying? If you want to see these in real time, make sure you hop on. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you hop on Twitch. You know what I'm saying? You can see it in real time. Make sure y'all boys drink some water, touch some grass, touch some water, and get some sunlight. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
In their most basic form, villains are hated. Sky is blue, I know. Some more than others. But the desire to see them defeated is a huge driving force into us wanting to see the story through. The Rock versus Triple H, one person to cheer and one person to boo. Stone Cold versus Vince McMahon, Hulk Hogan versus, well, never mind. The morally gray villain will draw
Hulk Hogan versus the world, dog.
out different sentiments, even support if their point of view makes enough sense. Sometimes the villain is so good in the role that there is a respect for the writing despite us wanting to see them suffer the ramifications for their actions. Then we have Askeladd, a murdering, thieving, pillaging.
Yeah, I think the best villains are I think good examples are your Naruto, your Dragon Ball, Cell, and how he was a clash to Goku and Cell's ideologies and why they fight. I think those are the type of villains that do evil things, but you have to respect at the end of the day it's good writing. And you can kind of be like, okay, I'm kind of impressed with what they do. There are some that are outlandish and that also impress you, like Goku Black. I know there's quite a few people that enjoy him as a villain just because of how outlandish his plan was. But then I think, as he's probably about to explain, Askeladd falls into this weird place where in Vinland Saga we see a lot of pretty much evil deeds happening, but it's common for the time. So it's we never really evaluate his actions as mad evil. And then with the great reveal, it's okay, maybe he's a neutral guy in these chaotic times.
Viking, although Viking is all-encompassing of that, who was responsible for the killing of Thorfinn's father, a wise man living a life of peace and atonement away from violence. Askeladd discards the honor of the duel he lost in order to get his payday, and no one seems to hold it against him. When I ask people who their favorite character is in Vinland Saga, I get two answers: Thorfinn and Askeladd. Yes, people love the writing, but they also love the personality of the character far more than any resentment for his actions. Why is Askeladd so beloved? This is what the creator of Vinland Saga had to say about Askeladd. Quote, for example, Askeladd, his role is to bring...
He looks like such a chill dude. Come on, man. That's my guy!
The creator of Vinland Saga had to say about Askeladd. Quote, for example, Askeladd, his role is to bring Thorfinn from the countryside of Iceland into the very center of the war. He's kind of a terrible person to Thorfinn, but at the same time, he's also a father figure. These two sides of him created this ambivalent character, and so that motive made him. As long as the motive is interesting, it makes the character an interesting person as well. End quote. Before we know anything about Thorfinn or
Write that down, sir. When I'm creating my villains, I mess with those.
are invested into his character, the story gives us a strong first impression of Askeladd. Chapter 1 and 2 give us a clear idea of what type of man we are dealing with, and commending respect from it. He is shown to be a smart, tactical man, adept in all manners of war, not just the physical, but also negotiations. His ability to speak is just as deadly as his ability with the sword. An extremely charismatic person, with the ability to poke into other people's weaknesses. There's a trick to manipulating every human being. Some of this comes from a clarity he has about how people work. Quote, a man, slave to gold, holds a whip, and beats the slave he bought with that gold as if to claim he is the master.
That's low-key tough because it talks about the question philosophically that everyone's a slave to something. And you can choose to have that be your dreams and ideals, which, you're seen as a more moral man, and you sometimes don't value those, materialistic things, or you can be a slave to materialistic things and constantly work like a dog.
Just doesn't see it for himself. Every living human being is a slave to something. End quote. Everything we see from Askeladd to begin with are qualities you want from someone in charge. We aren't given a single reason to dislike him. All we know is that Thorfinn hates him. But even in those exchanges, Askeladd comes off as efficient and to the point, wise but not overly cruel or cowardly. Then we are given the backstory as to why Thorfinn wants revenge on Askeladd. Maybe here the disconnect will disappear and we will share the sentiments of a young Thorfinn. Askeladd is hired to kill Thorfinn's father, Thors, a man that left behind his crew to live a life of peace, coming to understanding that life is sacred after the birth of his daughter, believing that no one has any enemies, wanting to spare his son of the life of bloodshed and pain. It's fair to say that at the point in the story where we meet him,
that's tough because everyone with Thor in their name is like really important to the story, and it's cool that he goes from being this ogre to like evolving, showing that a strong man isn't always just physically strong, but he still obviously maintains his strength. Winning the duel against Askeladd, but losing because like, you know, he died. So it's like at the end of the day, it's interesting that there's like that clash there between who they are as men, and then at the end of the day, whose ideals won, which is why Thorfinn is a extremely good main character.
Thors is a good man, one full of past sins, but is trying to atone and change, going as far as to pay an absurd amount for a half-dead slave, and then gives him a proper burial. When the two meet, as Thors and his men are trapped, they engage in a duel, showing off the legendary ability of Thors and further confirming the capabilities of Askeladd as well. The duel ends in Thors winning. Then Askeladd's right-hand man Bjorn takes Thorfinn captive, and Askeladd has Thors killed in front of his son, dishonoring the nature of the duel. He does honor Thor's final wish for his men to be spared, but this moment would usually be the turning point where a character like Askeladd would be hated by the audience, and we fully share Thorfinn's desire to see Askeladd dead. But that isn't really the case. I have a few ideas as to why. Despite him caring more about result than honor, he did uphold the deal he made with the men who hired him, and also the deal he made with Thors. Had he gone on to kill all the other men and spit on the grave of Thors, then I could see more.
You're right. He didn't do no Griffith stuff. It's just like he found a middle ground where he can keep his ideals, aka his safety for his dreams and ambitions, while honoring both men's principles.
Animosity existing. Even later on when he mocks Thorfinn about his father, it's done more in a way to take advantage of Thorfinn's anger and teach him a lesson, and not out of a desire to trash Thors per se. Tactics, not personal ego. The other reason is despite it being a very powerful scene, we don't really spend that much time with Thors, especially in comparison to Askeladd. If Makoto wanted us to hate Askeladd passionately, then he would have allowed us to have more time with the character. Give us an entire arc where we love Thors and really get to see that growth, on top of just seeing him as a moral anomaly in the world he lives in. But we spend far more time with Askeladd than we do Thors, allowing us to understand Thorfinn's motivation, but still leave us open to growing attached to Askeladd as well without needing a 180 from him. It could very well be argued that in the first arc, Askeladd actually takes the role of protagonist for many sections. Still a villain given what he does, but we get an extensive look into his qualities and outlook on life. Quote, "You're young, time's on your side. You'll grow up and I'll grow old. Someday you'll likely beat me. It's only natural, even the strongest."
That's tough because it further highlights how he's a tactical and insightful man, and also how he realizes his ambitions come first, and he's like subtly acknowledging, I'm not gonna kill you.
Man must die. He isn't a man that views himself in a delusional manner, always coming off as grounded. His ability to read people, as is shown in the beginning, is then full-blown impressive the more we go through the story. I've lived among the wicked men for 20 years, and I've picked up a skill along the way. I can tell what a man is. Is he great or timid? Is he clever or stupid? One glance at his face will tell me everything I need. I'm aware this isn't the most analytical statement, but to hell with that for a second. He's just cool as fuck. We like cool. If this wasn't my job, I'd leave it there. I'll also add that there is this honesty with the character that is very appreciated, since a lot of war characters that might handle the more tactical side of it are presented as cowardly when we want to dislike them, yet in all of the major battle scenes, Askeladd finds himself in the mud as well, leading his men, showing that he is an individual that leads by example. So as the story goes on, we are simply endeared more and more to his positive qualities that exist in wartime. The big turning point that endeared the audience more to Askeladd, however, is the revelation of his bloodline and origin. Quote, "Do you still believe in the legend?" It says that
Yeah, see, his backstory to me is what made his character. It's like his character was already 3-dimensional, and the backstory made it 4-dimensional, increasing like its depth in an incomparable manner.
King Artorias will return from Avalon in the west and restore Britannia to the glory days of old. End quote. A little bit of history. Wales, Scotland, and England were separate kingdoms with distinct cultural and ethnic backgrounds. England was made up of several Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, founded by Germanic tribes such as the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, who migrated to Britain after the fall of the Roman Empire. In contrast, Wales was home to the Celtic kingdoms, descended from the native Britons who said, "Fuck the Anglo-Saxons." Meanwhile, Scotland consisted of a mix of Pictish and Gaelic kingdoms, with some influence from the Angles in the southeast, but it largely remained separate from the Anglo-Saxon rule. This time period, up until the 15th century Renaissance, was known as the Dark Ages. Vinland Saga takes place during the 11th century, where the Danes, also known as the Vikings, are invading, and the current king of the Danes, King King this fucker has brought devastation to Wales, which
I think they call him King of Swain in like the show.
is Askeladd's homeland. This revelation adds a new light to his words and his essence as a person, and gives us someone easy to hate in the king. Askeladd and his mixed blood being Danish and Welsh. Quote, "I am half Welsh, half Nordic. My father Olaf once raided the coast of Wales and took my mother Lydia as a concubine. She gave birth to me." The other person responds, "But I had always heard the bloodline
Yeah, his backstory's so tough too.
of the hero of Old Britannia had died out. You claim you were truly the descendant of the great Artorias?" Once again, that name being brought up, Artorias. Relax, Dark Souls fans, I'm not British and this video isn't 2 hours longer than it needs to be. Not that Artorias. Artorias, the military leader from Britannia, the Celtic predecessors to England, who lived in the 5th and 6th centuries AD, according to Welsh historical accounts. In the year 516, the invading Saxons, who later became the English, were soundly crushed by Artorias.
It's also interesting because it's Japanese, like it's an anime, it's a manga, but it's covering this thing that came at a different point, at a different place on the planet, a completely different timeline, which is interesting because a lot of Americans, when they get into anime, have like Japanese focuses. So I think it's interesting that he's able to do this because there's like ideas I have involving different places, different timelines, and different cultures.
His army at the Battle of Baden Hill, thus bringing peace to Britannia. He formed the basis for the legend of King Arthur, as it is known today. Askeladd and his origins were actually foreshadowed, or pretty much just given, when he mentions he's a descendant to Thor's, something that the average person wouldn't pick up on unless they were familiar with all this history, since the story doesn't go on to give the exposition dump until much later. The name he was given meaning Ashen Lad, from working in a smith shop. Askeladd explains that when his mother was sick, his father sent her to the stables, and assures the man that he is speaking with that he despises the Danes, stemming from the hatred for his father, and his current methods come from a place of survival as a child. Growing tired of Thorfinn running into the same brick wall, and on edge from recent events, he shares his story on the hopes Thorfinn will learn. Quote, "Only a fool gives in to his rage, screams his bloody head off, and waves his weapon about. It's like nobody around here has ever heard of grace or beauty. Bjorn was right. I hate warriors, especially Norsemen. My very
Because reminding him of like his childhood type situation.
first kill was a Norse warrior. He was an ugly man. My father. Let me give you a lesson, boy, on how to kill a man you truly hate." He explains his father was a hero in Jutland. Think modern-day Denmark. He had many kids, and as said earlier, when his mother fell sick, he treated her no better than the dogs. He then retells his mother telling him of the legend of Artorias, a hero that would return and free her. He lived in paradise on Earth. They waited and waited. 5 centuries have passed. The hero still has not returned. His mother's spirit broke, and she approached his father, who then tried to kill her. This is where we get one of the quotes that defines Askeladd. "In an instant, I knew. If Artorias would not come to save my mother now, he would never come for us at all. Do you understand, boy? Someone has to do it. Not a hero, not a god, just someone. He stopped his father from doing it and says he just needed
Hold on, I'm about to write that down.
to catch his father's eye, accepting his training and getting along with his half-brothers for 2 years. Then when his guard was down, he killed him. Quote, "The sword belonged to one of my brothers. I'd stolen it from the one who was most at odds with my father. The others thought he'd done it and they hung him from a tree. Such simple-minded cretins, stupid and filthy, and unconcerned with anything but their own base urges. And now these ugly men flood forth from every cave and hovel to squeeze the life out of the world. For every one you kill, two take his place. I don't care if it's Artorias or Ragnarok or the final judgment. As long as it
I was still muted. Basically, what I said was like I had to go back and make sure I had it so I could write it down.
comes damned soon. But I doubt I'll be alive to see it for myself. That story ran long. The point is, Thorfinn, you've had a decade and you still can't beat me. That makes you a clown. Use your head for once." End quote. This adds a context to his style of revenge, chastising Thorfinn for his hot-headed and reckless approach, while Askeladd has used the Danes he despises in order to enact his version of revenge, further proving his composure under 99.9% of situations, as well as adding context to his moral thinking, not believing in
Shall we said 99.99. If something happens that
heroes, and even at other points in the story clearly not being fond of Christianity. In his mind, due to his life experiences, in this world there is no need for a hero and no need for a savior. Just someone who is willing to do the job. He does what he views as necessary before doing what will satisfy him or concerning himself with the moral details. Of course, he has his own code, but killing Canut's caretaker in order to toughen up Canute gives a bit of a show of how he really thinks. His way of assuring Wales will be in a better position as the current king is dying, even later admitting it to Canute, knowing Canute would still want Askeladd at his side. Knowing his history is a major influence on how he views the world and how he behaves, even telling Canute he is more suited to be a king since Askeladd himself is just a Viking. He needs Canute in power in order to ensure Wales will be in a better place, carrying out his objective and promise to his mom to be the king's sword, even by choking down his hatred for his own men. I've hated every last one of you, with every fiber of my being. You stinking pig fucking Danish whore sons.
that
The only
is so tough, bro. That is such a like y'all don't understand. That's it's an insane depth to a character. Like most characters, like you'll watch an anime and there are characters where 1D it's like, oh yeah, they're just there. It's 2D characters where it's like could have an importance in the story, they're related to the main character. I think this is a really good show. And then there's three-dimensional characters like these. But his backstory, I think, makes that flip fold and makes it like a fourth dimensional character. That's such a tough concept.
one he saw as a friend being Bjorn. However, his plan against the king goes south when the king uses his Welsh heritage against him, making him choose between Canute or his homeland. In that moment, he chooses the best option. Similar to the way his brother took the fall for the murder, he will do the same, and being that someone who will step up and be the hero. He has the king at sword point after insulting him. "This is my final warning. Put away your sword, Askeladd. That's only a nickname. Do you want to know my real name? The one given to me by my mother? Lucius Artorius Castus, and I am the rightful king of Britain."
This is so tough because, like, when you look this up, this is a person. That's what I'm saying. The author's ability to intertwine history, especially considering this man is Japanese. So it's like he might have taken a class or whatever, and he just became interested in this history, and intertwining it all together is really impressive. And then adding his own creative spin to it, it's like it makes it to me seem less weird for those Americans who like realize like, oh snap, we're making like our anime to like Japanese, and we don't know anything about like their culture and stuff. And then there's some Americans who like when they make their manga, it's like overly Americanized, and it's like, oh, okay, you know. So like finding your own balance or being able to create your own setting based off like historical information. It's great. Excellent showmanship of what it means to be an author.
Britannia. He protects Canute and Wales at the same time, by killing the king and letting Canute kill him, denying Thorfinn of the revenge he so desperately wanted. And with his final words, Askeladd gives Thorfinn heartfelt advice. Being a man that lived with revenge in mind, a slow-burning revenge, but one that is poison nonetheless. Despite what he did to Thorfinn, he tells him the same thing Thors would. Thorfinn refuses to kill him, yelling that it was all supposed to be by his hands. Quote, "Haven't you given a thought to what you're going to live for after I'm dead, Thorfinn? You haven't, have you? You're hopeless, you know that? Move on, Thorfinn. Don't hang on to this petty bullshit your entire life. You've got to move on. Go further. You are the son of Thors, so venture beyond the world he saw. That is your true battle. Be a true warrior."
And this is so tough because one, he mentions that he hates warriors, but he's doing this for Thorfinn. This really highlights the fact that he's a father figure. But two, Askeladd's like understanding that the sin of a son is not the sin of a son is a sin of the father, and the sin of a father is not the sin of a son. But he doesn't necessarily believe that. He believes the sin of a father, like to get his revenge, he'll do whatever, right? But he spares Canute here for the betterment of his people, just the same way he choked down his pride and like his disgust for the Danish by having like those people working for him. But it shows how deep he understands that heritage does play a role into who you are. So for someone like Thorfinn, who's a blank canvas like Askeladd once was, he's like telling him here, like, you know what I'm saying? Be the son of Thors and then go further. The same way his mother wanted him to become a sword of the king, he ends up accomplishing this and going further than his mother would have gone, being sick-ridden and doing more than this myth or this hero King Arthur was supposed to do for them.
Son of Thors. Being a true warrior was said to Askeladd by Thors in their battle. A true warrior needs no sword. But this is something for Thorfinn to figure out another time. Askeladd, despite his calculated methods, was still a slave to something, his revenge, and saw that Thorfinn was unable to see past his. But he would need to in order to truly live free. Rightful king of Britannia, lived in the stables as the son of a slave, demonstrating patience and wit that is hard not to admire. For the first part of Vinland Saga, it could be argued Askeladd is the most human character, flawed with reason and a pragmatic way of viewing the world, but with wisdom from decades of experience. Men stuck by his side knowing he was their best option for a better life, even in his Viking ways, showing respect and care for some. Bjorn, Thors, and even Thorfinn as a kid who had been trying to kill him for a decade, leaving him with parting words to live a life free from revenge and find paradise, despite believing there was no paradise for himself. He hopes Thorfinn can find his, and despite not being a hero or believing in them, doing something that is ultimately seen as heroic in the grander picture. It's easy to see why he is held in such high regard. Lucius Artorius Castus.
Another great video from The Masked Man. Very cinematic. This is why, or when, everyone loves the villain. It's always cinematic for Burr. He's very good at his job, very good at creating content, and this is a really good video diving into Askeladd, but also the topic, like the key topic, that there are times when everyone loves the villain, and there's like the argument of, is the better villain the evil one that like we can understand because of the writing, or is the better villain the Askeladd type of character? So yeah, that was about it for this one. As always, Discord link in the description. That'll be all for me. Peace.